Hello, everybody, and welcome once again. This is Syracuse basketball postgame presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for SU Athletics. Brent Axe with you here, and we're live on X. We're live on YouTube, live on Facebook as well, as Syracuse comes just short of the Sweet 16. They had now lost 27 straight to the UConn Huskies, who, by the way, advanced to their 30th straight Sweet 16. But none have been closer than this tonight, as Syracuse comes up just short of slaying a giant and knocking off the UConn Huskies. But the Huskies ultimately win this game in Storrs, Connecticut. Final score 72-64 tonight. Dyaisha Fair finishes her career as the third all-time leading scorer in the history of women's college basketball. An incredible accomplishment, an incredible career. And we'll go over it all tonight about where Syracuse was in this game itself. We'll go over the game. But really, it's the macro. It's the big picture when you think about Syracuse women's basketball and where this program is now, even with the loss to UConn tonight under Felicia Leggett-Jack, and the major steps forward that this program has made and looks like will continue to make. So Syracuse will finish the season at 24-8 with the loss to UConn tonight. We're going to hear from our Syracuse Sports Insiders coming up. It is an amazing time to be a Syracuse Sports Insider by texting the word orange to 315-847-3895. As a Syracuse Sports Insider, you get direct access to me via text. You can text me your thoughts during games. You can text me questions that come to you randomly in the middle of the night about Syracuse basketball, about Syracuse football. We are jamming with Syracuse spring football coverage here on the text line, on the podcast, Syracuse Sports. Anything you want to know about these teams that we cover for you and that I cover for you, just text it to me directly. I text you back directly. Your opinions, your thoughts, your questions. You get any breaking news from me first. You get my opinions first, and a great back and forth and dialogue. We're even doing a little March Madness pool amongst the Syracuse Sports Insiders, for entertainment purposes only, of course. So what a great time to be a Syracuse Sports Insider, and you can sign up today, try it free for 2 weeks, and just $3.99 a month after that. We're going to hear from our Syracuse Sports Insiders and their thoughts, not only on this game, but this season coming up here shortly. So let me zoom out first and start with a broad look here and start with the macro approach, if you will. Dyaisha Fair just completed one of the most incredible careers you're ever going to see in the history of women's college basketball. She was recruited by nobody, right? So many schools passed her over, but Felicia Leggett-Jack, when she was at Buffalo, saw this player in Rochester, New York, often the only coach that would go recruit her games. And even though Dyaisha was 5'5" and didn't, pass the typical look test of a Division I major college basketball player, Coach Jack saw something in Dyaisha Fair, and Dyaisha, first at Buffalo, then coming with Coach Jack to Syracuse, completes a remarkable career. So what Syracuse has to do, sooner rather than later, is retire Dyaisha's number. And I'm not talking about honoring the jersey and simply putting it up into the rafters. She has reached another level, and that number 2 should never be worn again by any player in Syracuse women's basketball history. I think she's that special and achieved something that needs to be honored properly. And remember, they only started retiring women's sports jerseys at Syracuse just a few years ago, and the first one that was retired was Felicia Leggett-Jack. Fair's number 2 should be retired and taken out of service, not simply honored. And it was an honor to watch her do her thing, particularly this. You got a 5'5" player out there who just has found a way to do something absolutely incredible. She's going to go on to the WNBA, where she will have challenges. Let's be honest here. To make it at that level, at the size she's at, is going to be a challenge. But raise your hand if you're going to doubt Dyaisha Fair making a career in the WNBA, in professional basketball. The players she passed tonight and now sits on a list with are WNBA All-Stars. Caitlin Clark is the all-time leading scorer, as you would imagine, in NCAA basketball history. But Dyaisha passed all the best and a couple of WNBA All-Stars, which I think she's well on the way to doing. So tip your cap to an incredible career, one of the greatest we've seen, men's or women's basketball, And of course, part of it was completed at Buffalo, but welcome to college sports in 2024, right? So let's just get that on the record right now. Retire that number 2. No one should ever wear it ever again. Coach Jack has this program right where it needs to be. I mentioned it at the top, guys. Syracuse has lost 27 straight to UConn. None have been as close as this one. None have been as remotely close as this game. UConn, let me pull up the numbers for you while we're talking about here. Syracuse had lost, as we mentioned, coming into this game, 26 straight to UConn, okay? The average margin of defeat was 30.5 points. These two have met 3 times in the NCAA tournament prior to tonight. The Huskies won them all by more than 30 points. That includes the 2016 national championship game, and the only other time that Syracuse women's basketball had reached the Sweet 16. In all 5 of its losses this season, UConn had really been spelled by a great guard. NC State's Sanaya Rivers, Notre Dame's Hannah Hidalgo, both more than had 30 points in that game. Rory Harmon for Texas had 27 points and 13 assists. And Dyaisha Fair just couldn't rise to that level tonight. And we'll get to this game individually as it speaks here coming up. But Syracuse had the help that it needed and checked pretty much every box it had to beat UConn. But when you take a step back and look at this here, the fact that Syracuse went into stores, a unique aspect of the NCAA women's college basketball tournament, by the way, that teams get to host on their home floor as a top 4 seed. And that's something that Syracuse certainly will look to attain next year. They came close this year. They slid a little bit at the end of the year, lost 3 of 4, and came up just short of hosting. And had they maybe done that and fallen on the right side of the bracket, they could have had a run to Albany, where one of the regionals is going to be. UConn will head for Portland, by the way. They'll take on Duke in the Sweet 16 as the NCAA women's basketball tournament advances. But where Felicia Legette-Jack has taken this program in 2 short years after the disaster that was left by Quentin Hillsman, and Quentin Hillsman was responsible for that Final Four national championship game run, had developed a lot of amazing players, Emily Angsler, Tiana Mangakahia, amongst them players that have gone to the WNBA. Before that, some of the greatest players that Syracuse has ever produced. But certainly that all came to a crashing halt with the way the Coach Q era ended. There was kind of a year in purgatory with Von Reed running the program. Felicia Legette-Jack didn't just have to come into Syracuse and make a basketball team better. She had to cleanse an entire program. She had to come in and change the culture of an entire program, and mission accomplished. That has been done. Her energy, her passion, her spirit. Look at the story this year. She has the brain tumor removed before the season starts, and the incredible story of that and how she had to slowly but surely work her way back into the game and coaching the game. Can you imagine telling Coach Jack to sit still for 2 months when you watch her coach and the passion that she speaks with? So all these incredible human stories and turning around just the culture and the cleansing the program needed, let alone you went out there tonight against one of the heavyweights in college basketball and almost slayed a giant. So on a macro level, 2 amazing things. Dyaisha Fair's remarkable career and where Coach Jack has this program. All right, now let's zoom in on this game because Syracuse did so much it had to in order to beat UConn. You know, when we talked after Syracuse beat Arizona, I said they're going to need a better game from Georgia Woolley if they're going to have a chance against UConn. They got it tonight. Georgia Woolley with 18 points in this game. She goes 3 of 8 from three-point range. Sophie Burrows, a future star for Syracuse, 6 of 11 from three-point range. It's the season high for her. She has 18 points. The difference between Syracuse and UConn tonight was UConn's Supergirl, Paige Bueckers, was an All-American for 4 quarters. Dyaisha Fair was not. Now, Dyaisha Fair made some big shots and put Syracuse right back into this game and was threatening to do Dyaisha Fair things once again. But you got to give a lot of credit tonight to Nika Mule for UConn. She eventually fouled out in the 4th quarter, but she did a masterful job guarding Dyaisha Fair, keeping her at bay. Look, Dyaisha Fair always comes through. She'll always get her numbers, but there was a long stretch of this game. At one point, she had missed 8 of 9 shots. She only had 2 points, and that's because Mule did a masterful job guarding her. All right, so Paige Bueckers had 32 points. Paige Bueckers is one of the best players in college basketball. You just have to concede she's going to do her thing, but that's the one thing Syracuse could not get to tonight. They couldn't score in the paint. Syracuse got outscored by UConn in the paint 30-10. Bueckers was responsible for a lot of that. Bueckers gets that shot. That Big East logo, they said it during the broadcast, and I'll repeat it. You know, when they show those like shot charts and all the green dots of where players make shots, she painted that logo green tonight because of all the shots. And it's so hard to defend. That's how you tear up a zone defense. You go to the logo and shoot. Bueckers is so hard to defend. So you got to concede she's going to have a great game, right? But then he had Shade hitting 5 of 9 from three-point range. She has 19 points. We mentioned the paint struggles, but what did Syracuse counter with, right? Well, first of all, they got 20 points off turnovers. That's something that, man, to have that in your back pocket and come up just short, that's why they stayed in this game. Their second chance points, they outdid UConn in that department 14-6. Syracuse was terrific, as they were against Arizona, as they have been all year, and needed to be tonight on second chance points. Getting those second chance points off of offensive rebounds. Syracuse had 17 offensive rebounds in this game. Despite the struggles in the paint offensively, they had their chances there, and they did get those second chance points, but just not enough pure points in the paint, if you will, right? They relied a little too much on the three. Fair ends up tonight 6 of 22. She did have 4 threes, 4 of 6 from the free throw line. She missed a couple at the end there. Syracuse's other big problem tonight was turnovers. Now, UConn had 17 turnovers, and Syracuse had 20 points off those turnovers, but it was the timing of Syracuse's turnovers that really bit them where it counted tonight. The Orange end up with 16 turnovers on the night. UConn gets 15 points off those turnovers, but it was some key turnovers down the stretch, some missed shots down the stretch. I mean, Syracuse gave UConn all it could handle tonight. A lot of cliches come to life. It's a play here. It's a play there. They really struggled in the second quarter. UConn outscored Syracuse 21-12, but then they come out of halftime. UConn could not buy a bucket in the third quarter. Syracuse actually outscored them in that quarter 16-14. They outscored UConn by 1 in the fourth quarter, 20-19. So if you're throwing all these things at me, if we're talking before the game and you have come back from a few hours into the future and you present me with this box score, but just X out the final score, I'm going to tell you that Syracuse gave it a hell of a shot. And I would almost be apt to say, wow, they won this game, right? They won a grinder. They won a close game. They pulled it out, even with the big number from Bueckers. You look at a lot of the numbers in this game, and Syracuse did exactly what they needed to do to win. Like we said, it was just some turnovers at the end, a play here, a play there, a shot there. I mean, that's this game. That second quarter, they really struggled there, but I don't really know what else you do in this game. Can you play better defense? Sure. Shade was left way too open on the wings at times. They did not rotate over. It's one thing to try to defend Paige Bueckers, which is a very hard task, even for a great defensive team. Shade is a great player, but if you're on her on the wing and you deny that shot and the rotations were more there on defense, maybe that helps. Remember, Elena Rice was not in this game for Syracuse. She unfortunately fell and hit her head with about 3 minutes to go in the Arizona game, so she was not available in this one. You know, Syracuse still went out there tonight and rotated and did what they did. We mentioned Fair and Burrows and Woolley. Wood did not score tonight, but had 10 rebounds, nearly fouled out. Latham with 6 points and 6 rebounds. She nearly fouled out, but didn't as well. Perkins didn't score in 8 minutes. Sanaya Wilson only played a few minutes in this one. And Varejao, now remember, Varejao had what was described by Syracuse as an illness down the stretch of the season. She did not go to the ACC tournament. She did not play well against Arizona. And tonight, she plays 12 minutes, does not score, and only grabs 1 rebound in this game. So you needed a little bit more from Varejao. That's where the points in the paint come into play. And they're going to stew over that in the offseason. They're going to watch this film, and they're going to see the opportunities. Gino Auriemma talked about it. Syracuse scrimmaged UConn before the season started. And Gino Auriemma, who recruited Felicia Leggett-Jack when he was an assistant coach at Virginia and wanted Jack to come play for him and has immense respect for Coach Jack. Back then, in October, when these teams scheduled, he called them special, and he did not like to see Syracuse on the other side of the court tonight as their opponent. It's not an easy road even for UConn clinching their 30th straight Sweet 16. This was the right kind of team to come into Stores and throw a monkey wrench right in the spokes and slay the giant, and they almost did it. So that's what Syracuse has to build on. You gave the most historic program in women's college basketball. Tennessee is certainly in that conversation, and some programs have emerged lately. But when you think women's college basketball, even though they haven't won a title since Syracuse native Breanna Stewart won the last one in 2016, UConn's still the standard, right? That's still the program that you look at historically, right? Syracuse came 8 points away from knocking them off, and UConn's been in the way. Their last NCAA tournament loss was to UConn, the 2016 national championship game. Stewie and company annihilated Syracuse in that game. Like, this is such a marker for Syracuse to try to attain, right? And I'm getting old Big East vibes, right? Just, man, look, the ACC is a great basketball conference. By the way, look at the Sweet 16 on the men's side. That two-bid league, right? That crappy league in the net. And we heard all year about how bad the ACC is. Yeah, they got 4 teams in the Sweet 16, right? All that matters is what you do in the tournament. And that's what the ACC did. ACC women's basketball, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, had like 8 or 9 teams in this tournament total. It's a great, great league. But to hear the conversation we're having about Syracuse and UConn, they should be playing every year. Maybe they could. I mean, that's a tall task to put UConn on the regular season schedule, but who doesn't want to see these teams continue to go at it here? But just the significance of that win, if Syracuse had finally knocked off UConn to get to its second Sweet 16, really would have been something, right? But they fell just short in this one. But collectively, if you're a fan of this program, you have to be thrilled about what Coach Jack is doing, how close they are to breaking through. And look, we'll have a whole offseason to talk about what they do going forward, the players that come back, how you move on without Dyaisha Fair, and what the approach is going to be there. She's a once-in-a-lifetime star who, again, you need to retire her number, not retire the jersey. The 2 should not be worn again by any Syracuse basketball player. I think that's the kind of special legacy that she built here. So you'll answer all those questions. The transfer portal, NIL, all those things may not be as buzzy, for lack of a better term, in the women's game than it is the men's game, but they're factors. There could be players that go in the portal. Syracuse is certainly going to look to go in the portal, and I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm not as tapped in on the women's side in terms of recruiting and where Coach Jack is at there. You see that bug? There's a bug on my microphone. Look at that. Hello. Oh, he's gone now. How long was that bug sitting there the whole time while I was talking? Anyway, where was I before rudely interrupted by our insect friend there? No, but this is going to be a challenge. But Coach Jack, just by playing UConn and this team playing UConn the way, I mean, how many players were watching tonight to watch UConn walked away saying, what about Syracuse? I'll play for them. What if Coach Jack calls? I'll play for her. That's the kind of impact this kind of game will have for Syracuse going forward. The program cannot be in a better spot, cannot be in better hands, and people are thrilled with how things are going. And if you don't want to take my word for it, let's hear what our Syracuse Sports Insiders have to say about that. Again, just text the word orange to 315-847-3895 to become a Syracuse Sports Insider. Get direct text access to me, and it's just $3.99 a month. Less than $1 a week. You can try it free for 2 weeks. Please do. We'd love to hear from you and have you join our Syracuse Sports Insider community. We start with Frank S., who says, I'll tell you what, Brent, I saw this dynasty at the very beginning with Rebecca Lobo and Jen Rosati. I have so much respect and admiration for Gino and what he has not only built, but what he has sustained. I never thought I'd see Syracuse go toe-to-toe with this program in a game like this. This is remarkable what Coach Jack is doing. From Paul L., who says UConn was not the unbeatable behemoth of the past. Bueckers was outstanding, as was Shade. The SU ladies gave it their all. They just couldn't get it done in the paint. From Kate, who says, amazing career by Fair, and this is only the beginning for Orange women's basketball. Coach Jack is a true leader, and the passion she brings is unmatched. I wish I could have played for her. Love that comment from Kate. From Randy H., who says, hey, Brent, the one thing I'm sorry about is I didn't watch the women's team more this year. Glad that I watched the last 2 games. At the very least, what a set of class. Best to Dyaisha Fair in a professional career. From Micah, who says, Brent, Obviously, a really great season for the women, but I honestly felt in the second half of this game, it was like watching the Harlem Globetrotters on a really, really, really off night. From Michael S., who says the Orange women have nothing to hang their heads about. It took a great performance by a college player of the year on our home floor to win. Proud of this team. From Daniel P., who says amazing, tough comeback, a great game, no matter the outcome. Shout out to our guy Daniel, by the way, for the gold medal, 75 out of 75. Good stuff for you, my friend. Now everybody's wondering what that is, right? I don't know if he'll want me to say who we're talking about here, but let's say, to steal a line from A Christmas Story, major award for Daniel P. and Company. Fragile. That must be Italian. Gabe says 52 straight wins at home for UConn in the tournament, counting tonight. Brent, what do you think? Is that too much of an advantage, or do you think that's fairly earned? I think that's a pretty unique aspect of the women's tournament, that they still have home court advantage. Obviously, the men's tournament, it's all neutral sites. I distinctly remember going to the Dome in, I want to say, was it 86? Yeah, it was 86. And Syracuse played an NCAA tournament game at the Dome against David Robinson and Navy and lost that game. By the way, that was Pearl's last game. And how unique that was to watch a team at home. Now, to see, especially on the men's side, all the courts are the same. You don't even get like the unique aspect of what each arena looks like. It's all the same standard kind of sterile court. The NCAA logos and everything is so kind of rigid in what the look is. In the women's game, you do see UConn in stores. You see Caitlin Clark playing one last home game in the tournament in Iowa, and the home court advantage that comes with that in South Carolina, and go through all the heavyweight programs here. Is that something that makes it stand out and unique, or has the women's game evolved to the point where maybe they should move past that? That would actually be a real sign of progress, that they could have neutral sites everywhere in the women's game and take away the home court advantage just based on the popularity of the game, and that you could put teams in neutral sites like they do in the men's game and do it for all the rounds of the tournament, not just the regional in Albany and in Portland, right? And Caitlin Clark and company coming to Albany, like LSU going to be there as well in some big-time women's college basketball programs. That's going to be the hot spot in sports coming up next week. It's a great question, Gabe. I think it's unique. I don't really love it or hate it one way or the other, but maybe its days are starting to fade away given the popularity of the women's game and the surge that it has had. Gary says this: Bueckers is the best player in the game, not Caitlin Clark. Discuss. To go to a word you used in that text, Gary, and a popular phrase from a terrific movie from the 1990s, Wayne's World. Not yet, man. Let's not get crazy here. Paige Bueckers is an incredible basketball player. And you know what? By the time she's done, she might be knocking on the door. She could be in that conversation. But to say now she's a better player than Caitlin Clark, no. Let me think about that some more. No, absolutely not. Caitlin Clark is a phenomenon. She's a walking bucket. She has revolutionized the sport. She's the Steph Curry of women's college basketball. And forget that. She's the Caitlin Clark. She's established. She's the all-time leading scorer in the history of the sport, right? Can Paige Bueckers get there? I mean, Paige Bueckers can shoot the three. She can score in the paint. She can dribble. She's a great passer. She's a great player. I don't want to make this let's brush aside the Paige Bueckers conversation. But if you're asking me today, she's not there yet. She's very close to getting there. She is in the first breath. If you take a breath, exhale, and say the best players in women's college basketball, you're going to say the name Paige Bueckers. Is she better than Caitlin Clark? Yeah. This sounds like a first take debate. And hey, Stephen A., you take this side, and over here, Chris Mad Dog Russo. I can see Chris Mad Dog Russo. I tell you, Stephen, Paige Bueckers, better player. She could score in the paint. Telling you, better than Caitlin Clark. It's my bad Chris Russo impression right there. Anyway, great stuff from you guys. Syracuse Sports Insiders. See, they bring these kind of great debates to this show. Appreciate it, you guys. Become a Syracuse Sports Insider today by texting the word orange to 315-847-56 3895. Okay, that's going to do it for this edition of Syracuse Basketball Postgame, and we have come to a close. Not that there aren't a lot of interesting things going on out there in the basketball world. The portal's been a little quieter than maybe we thought it would. It started off with a flurry. Quadir Copeland goes in the portal. Justin Taylor goes in the portal. We thought more would come. By the way, Quadir is technically not even in the portal yet. He announced his intention to go in the portal. And as we speak, he's not even there. So the intrigue will continue there. The intrigue will continue on the women's basketball side as they build and take a step forward here and what they do in the portal and what will come with NIL and the support that Coach Jack's program is going to gain. Jerry McNamara, as we speak, is not the head coach at Siena, but all indications are, barring some kind of last-minute fallout, he's going to be the head coach at Siena. That leaves open an assistant coaching spot at Syracuse. Who will that go to? Will Red Autry stay in the family and go with, say, Demetrius Nichols, say Eric Devendorf, right? Say Ryan Blackwell. Or, as he did with Brendan Strawn, go outside the family, right? Syracuse spring football and all the conversations we're having there, getting to know all the new players and getting to see how Fran Brown coaches this team and all the recruiting news. Syracuse brought in a 6'8", 380-pound offensive lineman from Texas just tonight. Brought in a quarterback from Texas who's rated, depending on which service you look at, some have him 4 stars, some have him as 3 stars, some have him as the 25th rated quarterback in the country, some have him just outside the top 50. Either way, these players are among dozens of Syracuse football recruits that visited this past weekend in Syracuse. It was one of the snowiest weekends of the year, and you're landing players from Texas coming to visit Syracuse in a snowstorm. So the recruiting gains being made by Coach Fran Brown and company. Lacrosse. The men's lacrosse team is number 3 in the country. They're taking on number 1 Notre Dame on Saturday. The women's lacrosse team is beating top 10 opponents and has more to come. There's so much going on. So basketball's over, but we're going to stay busy. Off-season? What are you talking about? There's no such thing. We're going to keep the conversation going on Syracuse Sports. We're going to keep the conversation going on our Syracuse Sports Insider text line. So please subscribe, YouTube, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, so you get the Syracuse Sports Podcast and our post-game shows here. Please become a Syracuse Sports Insider. Join the conversation because this is one of the busiest times to be a Syracuse sports fan, and we're going to keep it all in line for you. My opinions, insight, analysis, your opinions, insight, and analysis as Syracuse Sports Insiders and listeners to the show. There's so much to talk about. But unfortunately, we won't be talking any more basketball on the court. As the women's team falls to UConn 72-64, they will close their season at 24-8. And one of the great careers in the history of women's college basketball comes to a close. Another tip of the cap to Dyaisha Fair on becoming the 3rd all-time leading scorer in women's basketball college history. You guys have a great rest of your night. Keep it locked here on Syracuse Sports. As we said, so much to talk about in the coming days and weeks. We'll keep it rolling here, but thanks for hanging tonight on Syracuse Basketball Postgame, presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for SU Athletics. We'll talk to you next time, guys.